Hey guys, welcome to today's e-learning lesson. Today we're talking about finding the volume of a sphere. So the volume of a sphere is like a basketball, pokeball, whatever you want to talk about. It is a spherical shape. A sphere has equal distance points all around a center point, which we call the center. To find the volume of a sphere, we will use 4/3 pi times r cubed. This is the only time we don't have really r squared. We have r cubed, and we have 4/3 times that pi. Now, if you want to know why it's 4/3, I can't explain it, but these guys explain it a little bit better than I do. So you could go ahead and pause the video and read this if you want to know why it's 4/3 times pi. If you don't care, then you just need to know this formula right there. Now, this formula will be one of the formulas that is given to you on your test, so you don't have to worry about memorizing this formula. But it's important to know how to use it, which is what we'll be practicing here in this video. So this first example, it says find the volume of the sphere round to the nearest tenth. And notice it only gives us a radius. And notice the only thing missing in our formula is a radius. 4/3 is just a number. So I'm going to say that the volume, V, is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. So notice the only thing we really need to fill in here is for our radius. So if I need to find the volume of this sphere, then I'm going to take that 4/3, multiply it by our pi. Remember, whenever we're using pi, we're using the pi button on our calculator. We are not using 3.14. And then we have our r, which is 6, and we are cubing r. So now that we have everything, we can go ahead and plug that into our calculator. If it'll come over here, I can show you. So again, I'm going to do my exponents first. So 6 cubed is 216. Multiply that by our pi, and then we'll multiply that by our 4/3. Now I'm going to put it in parentheses just to make sure that that 4 gets divided by that 3 first. So we get 904.8 if we're rounding to the nearest tenth. So I'll go ahead and write that down. So this volume is going to be equal to 400, not 400, sorry. What our calculator said there, 904.8. Don't forget your units. We have our units of millimeters right there. So it's millimeters cubed. Because again, we're talking about volume, and whenever you're talking about volume, you have to remember to cube your units. I have two more examples that I want you guys to try before we move on. So here are two examples given to you. I want you to find the volume of each of these spheres. Notice that this 22 centimeters is a diameter versus this one that is a radius. So go ahead and try to find that volume, and we will check it here in a minute. Alright, so you should have those solved by now. Let's go ahead and go over them. So to start off, we have letter A. So notice about letter A, when I'm plugging in my formula here, I have 4/3 pi, but my r, I'm not really sure what r is immediately looking at that, because we are given the diameter. Again, the diameter is the whole length of that sphere, that whole length. So then the radius would be half of that. So I'm going to have to cube 11, not 22. So now that I have it plugged into my formula here, I can literally just plug it into my calculator. Let's do 4 divided by 3 first, because why not? Times pi times, now I have to be sure to put this in parentheses if it's going to give me the correct answer. 11 cubed. If I would have just cubed my regular number, it would have cubed everything, and then we would have gotten an incorrect answer. So after I plug all that in, with my parentheses in place and everything, we have this is equal to 5,575.3 centimeters cubed. So that's your answer for A, right there. Let's do B in red. Let's get our calculator up here just in case. So for B, we again are using that same formula. 4/3 pi r, which is 5, cubed. Again, you do your exponents first. So now you can do exponents first. You've seen me plug it in. This one I plugged in it left to right, but I still put my 11 to the third power in parentheses so that the calculator calculated that one first. But it's important to know that 5 cubed is 125. Multiply it by our pi button. Multiply it. If you don't want to put in 4 divided by 3, just know that 4 divided by 3 is 1.3 repeating. So we get 523.6. Those are just some different ways you can put it in there. And because we are talking about volume, our answer is cubed. In this next example, it has given us our question in words. So a spherical stone in the courtyard of the National Museum of Costa Rica has a diameter of about 8 feet. Find the volume of the spherical stone. Round to the nearest tenth. So it's told us it's a sphere, so I know I can use my volume spherical formula here. And it's told me that it has a diameter of 8 feet. Now if it has a diameter of 8 feet, that means the radius has to be half of that. So that's why it's important to read our question carefully. So now instead of plugging in 8 cubed, I'm going to put 4 cubed in this. So let's go ahead and plug that in to our calculator. So we have 4 cubed, 64, times our pi button, times that 4 over 3, or that 1.3 repeating, is equal to 268, and remember I'm rounding to the nearest tenth because it asked me to in the problem. So I have 268.1 feet cubed, and that is our answer. Now if you wanted to say cubic feet and write it out in words, that's fine as well, but for this example I'm just going to write it as that answer, cubed feet cubed. So our next problem that I want us to do is another word problem, slightly different than the one we just did. So let's go ahead and read this. We have a volleyball has a diameter of 10 inches. Again, that diameter, and remember, diameter, if diameter is equal to 10, then our radius has to be equal to 5. A pump can inflate a ball at the rate of 325 cubic inches per minute. So 325 inches cubed takes 1 minute. Looks like we're going to need that for a conversion. How long will it take to inflate the ball? Round to the nearest tenth. Well, the first part of this, we need to find the volume of the ball. So let's go ahead and find the volume of the ball using our formula up here. So we have 4/3 times pi times our r, so not that 10, we're going to use 5 cubed. 5 cubed is 125. In case you don't believe me, 5 cubed is 125 times pi button times 1.3 repeating. And we get 523.6 if I'm rounding to the nearest tenth, which I should. So we get 523.6 inches cubed. So that's our volume, but it didn't ask us to find the volume. It asked us how long will it take to inflate the ball. So I need to set up a proportion here. I need to figure out if I know that it takes 325 minutes for 325 inches cubed. It took 1 minute. So I want to find out how many minutes it's going to take to fill up 523. You'd cross multiply, you'd get 325x is equal to a 523.6. So you divide by 325, divide by 325. And when you divide that by 325, you get approximately x is equal to 1.6. So I would say about 1.6 minutes. It's important to read the context of your problem so you don't just get to this 523.6 inches cubed mark and think you're done when you're not. The next portion we want to go over is finding the volume of a hemisphere. So a hemisphere, a circle separates a sphere into two congruent halves called a hemisphere. You might have talked about hemisphere when you've learned about geography. It is half. There's the northern and the southern hemisphere. So when we have a sphere like the Earth or any spherical shape, we have a hemisphere, which is half of it as well. And we can use this formula to help us solve for hemispheres, because this formula helps me find a full sphere. So if I need to find the volume of a hemisphere, what do you think I'm going to use? I'm going to use half of this. I need 1/2 of a whole sphere, so I'm going to multiply whatever I get when I multiply a whole sphere size of this, and I'm going to multiply it by 1/2 or divide it by 2. Both are doing the exact same thing. So for this example, we're going to take 1/2 times 4/3 over pi. Remember, we're using our pi button. Now for r, it's given me 5 centimeters. So I'm going to plug in 5 cubed. So then I'll have 1/2 times 4/3 times pi. 5 cubed is 125. And you'll plug all that in. So let's plug all that in. So we have 125. Let's move this so we can see it. So we have 125 times pi button, times 4/3 or 1.333, repeating because that's 4/3. And then we're going to multiply that by 1/2. So I can multiply it by 0.5. And I get 261, and don't forget it asks us to round to the nearest tenth, so I have 261.8 centimeters, because our picture is in centimeters, and then I'm talking about volume, so I cube it. So when we're talking about a hemisphere, we're just doing half of the actual formula for a sphere. Calculating the volume of a hemisphere is not given to you on a test. So you must know that if I am asking for the volume of a hemisphere, that you are multiplying the volume of a sphere times 1/2. This is very important. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. So go ahead and try your best to answer these two questions. So go ahead and answer E and F. Go ahead and pause the video. Try to solve for E and F, which are both hemispheres. Solve for their volume. I want you to find volume of both of those. Take a second, and we will go over the answers here in a second, and then I'll give you the password for the assignment. So you should have had plenty of time to solve that. So remember that this is our formula for finding an entire sphere's volume. And this is what we use when we're finding half of the sphere's volume, the hemisphere's volume. When we're finding hemisphere, we multiply our sphere by half, the volume by half. So for this first one, for E, Okay, it's given us the diameter. Again, diameter is lame. We don't like diameter. We need radius. And the radius is half of our diameter. So I'm going to take that 2 and turn it into a 1. So really, I'm just multiplying this all together. So I'm multiplying pi times 4/3, which is 1.3 repeating, times that half, or 0.5. And we get, when we round to the nearest tenth, 2.1. So 2.1 centimeters. Am I squared? No, I'm not squared. I'm talking about volume. I'm cubed. So 2.1 centimeters cubed. Now for F. Let's do F in blue. No, I already done blue. Let's do this color. F. Alright, so now we have the radius of 9. So let's do 1/2 times 4/3 pi times 9 cubed. So let's do our exponents first so we don't mess up. 9 cubed is 729. Multiply that by our pi. Multiply that by our 4/3, which is equal to 1.3 repeating, times that half. Don't forget to multiply it by half. So instead of multiplying by 0.5, you could divide by 2. Either way is saying the same thing. So if we divide by 2, we get 1,526.8. So write that down for our answer. We have 1,526.8. Look at our units. We're in meters. So is it just meters? No, it's meters cubed. Wonderful. I'm going to make the password for your guys' assignment sphere. No caps, just sphere. Thank you guys for watching these notes. I'll see you guys next week. Email me if you have any questions. Have a good weekend.